Hello, crypto world. Welcome to the Chart Historian. My name is Justin, and on this channel, I delve deep into crypto charts, exploring chart structures, fractals, and patterns. So in this video, we're going to talk about XRP, whether or not it goes into the great fakeout from here or into the bull run. By the end of this video, my goal is that you will be able to have a good understanding whether or not we are headed into the great fakeout or into the bull run. So let's start with the big picture. So this is the repetitive macro structure that XRP has. The reason why I call it repetitive is because it repeats, and the reason why I call it a macro structure is because this is the big picture. So what happens at this level is XRP has its bull runs, it has its declines. We see a bull run here. This was a bull run, even though it's smaller than this one. It has a decline. We see another bull run over here and a decline. It has a sideways range-bound time. We see one being completed over here. This one is, of course, completed, and there's one over here. If we go further back, we can see the same setup: bull run, decline, and sideways range-bound time. I divide this sideways range-bound time into three separate fractals. Fractal 1 has two parts: part A, where price moves up and down; part B, where it goes flat. Over here, we see the same thing. Price in fractal 1 moved up and down in part A, and then part B, it goes flat. Fractal 2 has three waves: wave A, wave B, and wave C. We see that over here: wave A, wave B, and wave C. In fractal 3, price moves up to a peak, which is part A, and then it crashes, which is part B, and then it recovers and does this smaller correction right here before moving into the bull run. So we are currently working on fractal 3. It is my belief that we have been following this one the closest. We have this first bounce right here, which we see over here. We then have this bounce right here, which we see over here. We have been following this part pretty closely. In fact, I will copy this part of the fractal and paste it over here, and you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so here's that fractal, copy and pasted. Now the timing is a little different. Price moves up just like it should. It then declines and moves up again here. It then comes down to a trough and then bounces up. We have that bounce right here. However, this time it went lower in the fractal versus the chart. It then moves up. We see that right here on the fractal. It then declines. We see that decline over here in the chart. In today's chart, it has this bounce and it moves up to a peak, which the fractal does as well. So this is where it differs, and it's not really differing. It's just the timing, height, and depth play out much different than it did over here. I've gone into this in previous videos. I will briefly touch on it. So we have this decline, and it moves back up. We see that right here with the fractal. It then declines on this part, and we see that decline in today's chart. After that decline, price begins to move up, and this is what we have experienced so far. Now, I'm going to copy this part of the fractal and this part of the fractal and paste it over here. So this decline is this. As you can see, price moves down. It follows it the way it should. It moves up higher in some places, and that's due to the timing, height, and depth being unique. Over here, it follows it once again fairly closely, and it is now moving up here. Now, for those of you who saw my post where I talked about this decline right here makes the case that we could potentially be not doing the great fake out with this decline. Why do I say that? Okay, let's zoom back out. Okay, so we're zoomed back out. I'd like to bring your attention to fractal 3. So price moves up to a peak, which is part A. It then declines, which is part B. It then recovers, does this correction before going into the bull run. This is the fundamental characteristics of fractal 3. If we go over here and examine this fractal 3, we see the same characteristics. Price moves up to a peak in part A. It then declines in part B. It then recovers, does a small correction right here before going into the bull run. Let's go back even further and examine the fractal 3 that came before this one. So price moves up to a peak in part A, it then declines in part B, it then recovers, does a small correction before going into the bull run. So as you can see, the fundamental characteristics of fractal 3 is that it moves up to a peak, which is part A, it then declines in part B, it then pulls back up, does that correction before going into the bull run. So what do we have over here? Let's jump back over here and examine it on a smaller scale. Okay, so here we are on a 4-hour time frame. So as you can see, it moves up, which would potentially be part A. It then declines, which would potentially be part B. It is now moving up, and this steep drop here, if it continues to develop into a substantial correction before taking off, I would say that is a good indicator that we are potentially going straight into the bull run. Now, just because it has done this drop doesn't mean that that is a given. Let me jump back to the one we have been following. So at this stage, we do a pullback right here. We're doing the exact same thing that it should be doing at this point. However, the timing, height, and depth is different this time around. That is also completely normal. Whenever a fractal repeats, the timing, the height, and the depth, those parts will always be original to the new fractal. So in that sense, nothing has changed. What we don't want to see is, if you're into the great fakeout happening, you do not want to see this correction look more like this correction, which is more substantial. It should be visible on a day candle. So here we are on a day candle, and just like the one that came before this, back in 2017, it also is visible on a day candle. They are all visible on day candles. So if we begin to see a substantial correction that takes its time to develop and is noticeable on a day candle, that is something that I would begin to say, maybe we are not going into the great fakeout. Let's jump back to where we are. Okay, so here we are on an hour candle. I have the fractals from the lead up to the great fakeout. This, in my opinion, has, despite the choppiness, has followed the basic outline. We have the decline. All these parts are doing what they should be doing. What I don't want to see, if I am rooting for the great fakeout, I don't want to see something like this that takes its jolly time to complete, and it becomes visible on a day candle to where we all can see, hey, this is a substantial correction. It's not this by any means. It's much larger. So if you're into the great fakeout taking place, we want to see something like that. That would be a quick correction. What that would mean on today's chart would be something more along the lines of a fast, quick little correction and an aggressive move up into the great fakeout. Of course, there would be this little pause right here, but it shouldn't be this long, drawn-out thing. The more it draws out, the more the case is made for the bull run. You may ask what I think. I'm actually 50-50. I don't have any strong feelings at the moment. I'm waiting for this to play out. So at this point, I am neutral. That is my goal all along. My goal is to relay what I see. As of now, it's been following the fractal to the great fakeout very closely. There has been some deviations here and there, but it hasn't really been deviations from the structure, just timing, height, and depth playing out uniquely. That's all. Now, in my previous video, I talked about a setup that was taking place between Bitcoin and XRP that led to the great fakeout. Let's jump over to Bitcoin. Okay, so here on top, we have Bitcoin, and on the bottom, we have XRP. This is the great fakeout, which is highlighted in this box right here. So the move up to the low right here, that is this box over here. Now, in my last video, we were very close. We were in this area right here. XRP was also in this area, which it pretty much still is. However, since that last video, Bitcoin has been on fire. It is, I believe, somewhere around here right now. That steep pullback we just experienced at the all-time high, that was this right here moving. Actually, it was right here moving down. This was the all-time high when this took place. The previous all-time high was, that battle was right here. Today, it's over here. So that setup that we were looking at in the last video has passed. However, that doesn't mean that the great fakeout can't happen. It's just that the similarities from today to the last bull run where the great fakeout took place is not so eminent anymore, which maybe is a case for going into the bull run. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on this kind of stuff in the comments. So what we're looking for and what you can be on the lookout for is a correction that takes place, that we can see it from a day candle right before it goes into a bull run like this. So in that case, we would have all the parts of fractal 3. We would have the move up, which would be part A. We'd have the move down, which would be part B. And then we'd have that correction. On today's chart, it would be the move up, which would be part A, the move down, which would be part B. We have this correction if it takes place. If it ends up just being a little dip and then it moves up, then I would say that that correction probably didn't take place. So if the great fakeout takes place, that would be part A. The crash that ensues would be part B. So if we see this correction take place and it looks like the other corrections, then we have to be open to this being part A and that being part B. If not, then I would say the great fakeout is still on track, and I would keep that in the forefront of my TA right now. Like I said, I'm 50-50. It can go either way. Let's clean this chart up. You know, I will change my analysis on a dime if I see evidence pointing in another direction. And that is my goal. I don't care if I take a loss on people's opinion. Oh, you changed your mind. You were saying this and now you're not. That doesn't mean much to me. I am more concerned about accuracy. And if I see something and I don't tell you, that's not good. So if I see something, which I see right now with this dip, I'm going to let you know about it. You can make your decisions on how you choose to navigate this fractal. My job is to tell you what I see, and this is what I am seeing. Well, I hope this video was helpful. If you found it helpful, it'd be much appreciated if you hit that thumbs up button. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, but if you did find this video interesting and you're not a subscriber yet, I recommend hitting that subscribe button. I'll be continuing to follow this chart as it continues to develop. I also have a Patreon page that is patreon.com/thecharthistorian. Connected to that Patreon page is a Discord where I have a channel that we discuss XRP. Others contribute. I'm active on it. So if you want to be part of that community, you're welcome to join. It's a $5 a month subscription. I'll put the link in the description. I'm so glad you caught this video. I hope you catch my next one. Have a great day. And bye for now.